Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. Today, we're going to be discussing the fun and exciting topic of the absolute worst Harry Potter theories to have surfaced or been discussed in 2022. Some of these theories you may recognize from videos of mine that I've released in the last year. However, many are topics I either didn't have time to address in specific videos or hadn't come across until now. Of course, if you have yet to watch my past videos on some of the topics I mentioned today, I obviously encourage you to go check them out after this if you'd like to learn more about them. So, without further ado, let's dig into 8 of 2022's most terrible theories. As we make our way through each theory, I'll explain how some of these can be completely disproven, while others are, well, just absurd. Hermione is Harry's sister. Let's begin with a theory which I personally feel has very little merit. That is, the theory that Hermione is actually Harry's sister. As I mentioned in my video, 5 Hermione Granger fan theories ranked worst to best, this theory is almost entirely based on fans' feelings. Absurd, right? That's not a theory, my friends. That's just, well, a feeling. This theory is also almost completely debunked by the fact that J.K. Rowling has commented in the past on how she thought Harry and Hermione should have ended up together. I don't quite think Rowling would have made that comment should she have secretly made the two of them related. Hermione's parents were abusive. Another totally weird theory that revolves around Miss Hermione Granger is one to do with her relationship with her parents. Now, you may recall that I've discussed the idea that Hermione was possibly homeless for a certain point in time during the latter half of the series, but this theory further expands on that idea, claiming that Hermione purposefully erased her parents' memories in an effort to free herself from their abuse. That's right, this theory suggests that Mr. and Mrs. Granger were physically abusive towards Hermione. As the theory goes, this would apparently account for the large amounts of time that she spent with either Harry or Ron and the rest of the Weasley family throughout the holidays and breaks from Hogwarts. Points against this oddly dark theory include the fact that Hermione went above and beyond to protect her parents in the 7th book. She never showed any signs of abuse, and that when we meet her parents in Diagon Alley in the 2nd installment of this series, there's nothing notably wrong with them. Obviously, the two latter of those 3 points are a little on the weaker side, since abusive parents can hide their nature from the outside world. However, I think the first point is strong enough to disprove this theory, especially in combination with the other two. Hogwarts and magic, it was all a dream. Another theory that I have little love for is the one that, I'll admit, has been around for a while, but it's just so bad that I had to mention it. It's the theory that the entire series was all a dream that took place in Harry's head. This idea comes with serious flaws. To start with, the epic saga that is the Harry Potter series lasts 7 whole years. Of course, I suppose it could be argued that a dream can span great lengths of time, so why not years? However, it's pretty difficult to argue with the fact that the wizarding world has expanded to other characters, including different protagonists like famous magizoologist Newt Scamander. So how would a dream transfer from one person to another with complete histories of the same universe intact? Simply put, it would not. The Dursleys and Harry. Another theory that has cropped up a few times here and there is the idea that the Dursleys were only terrible to Harry because he was a Horcrux. That is, in the same way that Salazar Slytherin's locket made whomever was wearing it, while it housed a piece of Voldemort's soul, feel absolutely horrid, being around Harry made the Dursleys behave badly. This theory has so many flaws. First of all, if this was true, why was no one else in Harry's life impacted by the fact that he was a Horcrux? For example, wouldn't all of his friends, Ron, Hermione, Hagrid, have all also been totally rude to him if this was a real effect of Harry being a Horcrux? Second of all, the Dursleys were incredibly rude and terrible people to others, not just Harry. So pretty much, this theory is a bust. The Dursleys were just bad people. Draco Malfoy, son of Snape and a werewolf? There's also been a couple odd theories that have come to light about Draco Malfoy. One that I've come across recently was that some fans believe that Draco may have been Snape's illegitimate son. I've literally seen zero proof to support this. Not to mention the fact that Draco is the spitting image of his father, Lucius Malfoy. I've also stumbled upon the theory that Draco became a werewolf later in the series. while there is some speculated evidence for this theory, I'm pretty quick to discount it. Some fans have said that he may have been bitten by Greyback, who seemed to be living at Malfoy Manor near the end of the series. So I guess the bite could have accounted for the mark on Draco's arm, rather than it being the dark mark of Voldemort's Death Eaters, as Malfoy himself claims. However, that all seems rather circumstantial, and there's just not enough there to support it, in my opinion. Snape was Harry's real father. Now, I just mentioned the idea that some fans have speculated that Snape was Draco Malfoy's true biological father, for some reason theorizing that the perennial bachelor Severus Snape was secretly having illegitimate children all over the UK is a rather popular one. Which brings us to claims that Snape was actually Harry's real father. Now, as you may recall in the past, I've done a video on what if Snape had been Harry's father, but in all honesty, that was more a theory on how the relationship would have impacted the two characters, for I truly don't believe Lily would have been interested in an affair with Severus. His choice to become a Death Eater was just too traumatizing and unforgivable to her. But if we forget all that for just a moment, the most convincing piece of evidence that disproves this theory is Harry's physical resemblance to his father, James. Sure, there have been some fans out there who suggest that Lily could have done some magical plastic surgery on Harry after he was born, but that just seems totally bonkers to me. Snape was to be godfather of Lily's unborn child. Along the same lines is yet another theory about Snape and his connection with Lily and her child, or in this case, unborn child. The theory revolves around the idea that Lily was pregnant at the time of her death, and if you've guessed that Snape was the father of this child, you would actually be incorrect in your assumption, for this very vanilla fan theory claims that Snape was to be the godfather of James and Lily's unborn child. A rather boring thing to theorize about if you ask me, but hey, what the heck, let's review what we know. This is as unlikely a theory as any, since there is absolutely no proof or evidence to substantiate that Lily was even pregnant at the time of her death. Furthermore, as just mentioned, there's no indication that Lily had reconciled with Snape at this point in her life, never mind recovered a relationship to the point in which she would consider him a close and important enough figure to have him be the godfather to one of her children. Not to mention the historical tension between Severus and James. So even if Lily had forgiven Snape to the point that she was willing to invite him into her children's lives in such an important and intimate way, it's terribly unlikely that James would have been okay with this decision. Merope Gaunt was Credence Barebone's biological mother, which brings us to the final bad theory of 2022, that Merope Gaunt, Voldemort's biological mother, was also the mother of Credence Barebone. As you may remember, I discussed this theory right after the release of Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. As I mentioned then, this theory, while incredibly entertaining, is simply not possible, since Merope was born 6 years after Credence. Of course, this would have made it pretty difficult for her to be his mother, not to mention that the Gaunt family also resided in Little Hangleton, not Godric's Hollow, where Aberforth Dumbledore, Credence's biological father, was living preceding Credence's birth. And with that, we've come to the end of another video. What did you think? Did I miss any theories from the past year that you thought were the absolute worst? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, remember, it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live.